Thanks. Next in our program, we have a conversation entitled Cross-Country Perspectives on the Future of Activism. This discussion involves three premier public affairs professionals, say that 3 times fast, Jackie Stewart, Ann Carto, and our own Sean Bennett. Jackie Stewart is Director of Strategic Communications Segment at FTI Consulting and the State Director for Energy in Depth, Ohio. She's also part of the segment's public affairs practice and energy and natural resources industry practice. Ms. Stewart has over a decade of experience in government and community relations, public policy, and event management. Prior to FTI Consulting, Ms. Stewart served as District Director and Oil and Gas Point Woman for U.S. Representative Bill Johnson. In 2014, Jackie was awarded the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association Workhorse of the Year for everything she's done to support oil and gas in this part of the state. Ann Carto serves as Community Outreach Manager for the Colorado Oil and Gas Association. In this role, she leads COGA's local regulatory and outreach strategy. Previously, Ann held the role of Advocacy Program Coordinator at COGA, in which she organized a statewide speaking engagement program between operators and community organizations. Before arriving in Colorado, Ann was the Communications Coordinator for OOGA and Director of Coalitions and New Media for Energy in Depth, Ohio. Thank you for joining us. Who won the coin toss? Who's going first?
I didn't want to throw you off. I
don't know. Oh,
the clicker?
yeah. You guys still awake? We're going to talk about activists, so now it's going to get really fun, right? Now you get to see what we do all day long.
Yes.
I think everyone here is familiar with our program by now, especially if you've been coming to the conferences for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years? Something like that. Energy in Depth is the education research arm of the Independent Petroleum Association of America, and we have programs in all the basins across the country. I am the Ohio director. I'm based in Mahoning County, and I spend the bulk of my time up and down the river, but all over the state, dealing with debunking the misinformation campaigns that are consistently spread about this wonderful industry that we love and that we defend and promote every single day. Do I advance this?
Green means go.
All right, sorry. So I wanted to give everyone an update on what's been going on with local ballot measures to ban fracking, and not just to ban fracking, but to ban essentially any kind of development that would have any impact. In fact, the way that these ballot initiatives are actually, the language in the ballot initiatives really don't even have to do with this industry, but the activists use the oil and gas industry as a means to push their narrative. Not surprising, we have had an uptick in ballot initiatives throughout the years, as you can see. And we topped out at 8 last year. But interestingly enough, the activists push these ballot initiatives where there's no oil and natural gas development going on at all. I should say, unconventional oil and natural gas development, shale development. But they're not winning. They have failed over and over again. In Youngstown, they have failed 6 times, and the community in Youngstown, very close to where I live, continues to fight back because it's not really about the oil and gas industry again at all. But A, people really do like this industry, as polling has shown, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But B, again, these issues do not even just affect our industry. They affect basically any industry that the activists want to target. So 83% of these ballot measures have failed. And I just wanted to give everyone a couple updates on where we're at with regard to litigation and some recent legislation that was passed as well. So the Ohio Supreme Court had a ruling in 2015, Morrison versus Beck Energy. And this was really a game changer because it set a precedent that basically said that the state of Ohio has already ruled on this. Local ballot measures don't matter because we already have home rule. The state has made that determination. So it was a really important case, and it really just kind of set the bar for these ballot issues going forward. However, as we saw in 2016, we had more ballot measures that were tried, and as a result, House Bill 463 had a provision in it which is applicable for many different purposes, but particularly for our industry. The question of what's going to happen with these local fracking bans is really, is going to have a new face moving forward, because basically what this House Bill 463 did is it gives the Board of Elections the justification to say, no, we're not going to let these ballot measures go to the voters. So can they still circulate petitions? Yes. But should the Board of Elections determine that they are not going to take those petitions, those ballots to the voter, House Bill 463 addresses that. But as you can see by the quote above, the activists are still planning on fighting this issue, and obviously the real effort is going to be in the court of public opinion moving forward. So I wanted to give everyone an update on what's going on out there with regard to activism in Ohio, because it has changed. It really has. In the past couple years, since I started with EID, we essentially have two groups. There's the grassroots rogue groups, and there are the well-funded and well-organized groups. So what I would say to you is this. If any of the groups that you see on these slides, these logos, contact your companies, have that, in any way, I would pay attention from the perspective that these folks are professional agitators. In particular, Appalachia Resist is the worst of all of these groups, and they're serious business. Did anyone see how the individual that was arrested for chaining himself to the car in Columbus? Okay, a couple of you. So, these are the kind of people that are totally ready to get arrested. They encourage it, actually, and they have many times. But, they're not the only ones. So just be aware that these are the groups you want to look out for. But these are the groups that I think have more of an impact as it relates to potential legislation, writing letters to members of Congress or state house members. These are the groups you want to watch from that perspective. And these are also the groups that are quoted often in the media. So there should be a couple of these groups that may have even surprised you a little bit, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware that the Ohio Environmental Council has waged full-on war with the oil and natural gas industry. This has not always been quite the case, but it really is now. So they're funding billboards down in southeastern Ohio. They're not our friends, period. They try to play that, we're not really that bad. We're not really like those other fringe activists. No, you need to call them for what they are, which is fringe environmental activists. Period. That's what they are. These aren't people that just are out there fighting for the environment. They are a very, very small group of people that get headlines. And it's important that this industry speaks up against their misinformation campaigns, because they are. They are very organized, and they are very well funded. I will tell you, one of my favorite blogs that I wrote recently was announcing that one of the groups that was tied to the Youngstown local banned fracking efforts was arrested for election fraud. So, again, it's these groups. They want to advance their movement at any cost. So where is the debate today? Here's where I think that the activists are going to focus this year. We have a lot of pipeline work going on in 2017 and 2018. So the not in my backyard debate is definitely going to be top of mind. I think you're going to see more activism, but in a different way than we've seen it before. The fight is going to be toward the pipelines as opposed to hydraulic fracturing. But overall, it's still a problem. The Wayne National Forest is going to continue to be a fight. You'll see this is a billboard in southeastern Ohio that was funded by the Ohio Environmental Council. It is directly across from the U.S. Forest Service. So be aware that these are going on. And then, of course, the Keep It in the Ground movement, we cover it a lot on EID, and I know Ann's going to talk about it too. They're everywhere. They have their hands in a lot of these different campaigns. So that's, and how do we deal with this most important slide? So what do we do? What do we do about this? And we're going to talk about this more, but it's very important that we have a strategic offensive. And the most important thing we need to do as industry is make sure we're getting the facts out. Research-based facts. Recently, someone's asked me an opinion about something that I didn't know, I didn't have the data on. My answer was, I don't know, we'll see. And they said, what do you mean, we'll see? I said, I don't have the data for you, I don't know. But I think communities really, they respect that. So, and for the media that's here today, I know I saw John Funk from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. We've had, I think like 12 media folks have been here today. And I always say this, thank you so much for coming to this conference. Thank you for taking our calls and listening to our side of the story. It's very important. So thank you very much. And then, but the way that it isn't just research, it's research plus media plus grassroots. That is how we are able to go on a strategic offense. And here's why. 84% of the voters in this state support energy development. Is that surprising to you? Doesn't sound like the headlines, right? But that's the reality. And that's actually what we see as we travel around. When we talk about, 5-10% of the population, I know that's not what you see in the headlines, but that is in fact the reality of what's going on in Ohio. So again, I want to say this one more time. You need to call these people what they are, which is fringe environmental activists. They are a very, very small minority. They're just very loud. And I wanted to also point out the state of Ohio. This is the election results. So a lot of the voters that came out in this past election, we need to talk to them more. A lot of these people need to hear our story. They need to be engaged. And it's going to be, we have some solutions that we're going to be working on this year to really drive that point home. So with that.
Thank you. Go to the next one. I guess we're waiting on it. I apologize. But thank you for having me back. I think it was mentioned in my bio, I used to work for OOGA and Energy in Depth, so I'm thrilled to be back here. I looked at my Instagram and I spoke here 3 years ago about activists, and I'm still doing this, so interesting. But thank you. I wanted to provide a different perspective than Ohio to give you an idea of potentially what could be coming down the pike for you, what to expect, and why it's important to keep continuing to engage and to fund grassroots initiatives and engagement programs, frankly. So I wanted to give you a quick context of where Colorado is and where we've been through the past few years that has led us to where we are today as far as activism. And so this map shows you the yellow rectangle is the Front Range. If you've been to Colorado, that's going to have everything from Fort Collins to Denver to Colorado Springs. The edge of the foothills, that's where most of the population is and the population growth. It's absolutely booming. You'll see 3 blue circles. The one that's near the yellow rectangle is the DJ Basin. That's the one that you usually hear about when you hear about oil and gas development in Colorado. That's where the horizontal development's been, and that's where the boom has been. You have 2 others. In the west, you have the Piceance Basin, and in the south, the San Juan. But really, the focus of where I'm talking about most of the activism being is up in that DJ Basin, where you see development is clashing with the Front Range. In about 2009 and recognized in 2010 is when EOG's Jake well really took off. and showed the promise of the DJ Basin. And that's when we started to see things kick up. This map, again, shows Colorado's population density by county and its population growth by county. So as you can see, again, where that red is where the development is. And that is really where we're seeing large-scale development clashing with some of the biggest growth in neighborhoods and urban development in the nation. So that is where this scenario has created quite a bit of activism. You'll also see here, this is permits from 2000 to 2017, and the purple is overall applications to drill. But what you'll see is the gray is what's grown since that EOG Jake well. So that, again, we're seeing growth in the horizontal at the same time as this population growth. Don't know if it went. Again, active well count from 2002 to 2017, just to show more of that growth. And at the same time, the national groups that are also meddling in Ohio realized Colorado is ground zero for them. We are a purple state, if you couldn't tell in the last election. We were very vocal about that. And also at our state legislature, we almost always have a split legislature. That's been the case the past few years. It's a great place to get things going, create a narrative, create controversy, and run with it. So you'll see on the left here, it was this guide to ban fracking. Luckily, they give this stuff out, so we were able to follow what they're doing pretty well. And then on the right, they really played into Colorado with frack-free Colorado. I know there's frack-free Ohio, there's frack-free everywhere. But what they did is they gained sponsors from Prana, a huge yoga company, Patagonia, the big camping company, to really play into Colorado's citizens, its interests. We camp, we ski, we bike, all that. And so if the cool campers and bikers and skiers hate fracking, everyone else should, right, in Colorado. So they used concerts and ads like this to gain everyone's attention. At the same time, the legislature was reacting. Industry was reacting. Industry understood we couldn't just sit by and watch this all happen. So we've had 10 major rulemakings since 2010. And I mean, as you can see on the list, they are major overhauls, sometimes the first in the country. And we have very stringent regulations that we think go much farther than the federal government and many other states. So we weren't just letting the activists take hold. We were working towards the concerns of the citizens, but the rational citizens. At the same time, local governments were being pressured, and they still are today. We've had, just like here, many initiatives for bans and moratoriums. Unfortunately, we don't have quite the support for energy development that Ohio does, so many of these were supported by the majority of the local jurisdiction and the population. But one of them, Loveland, was actually not passed by the citizens, so that was our one win. However, we did have a great result this last year. Finally, the Colorado Supreme Court issued an opinion in our favor saying that, oh, I went too far. Did I get it? Sorry. Saying that, well, that's okay. Basically, the two opinions said that Longmont's ban, there we go, on hydraulic fracturing and Fort Collins' 5-year moratorium on hydraulic fracturing and storage were both illegal. There it goes again. But that was a great win for us. It invalidated two other jurisdictions' attempts to ban oil and gas, so that was a huge win for us. It meant in Colorado that you cannot do long-term bans on oil and gas production. So that was great, but what it meant is that local governments and the residents of Colorado and activists that did not feel they had the protection of the state anymore and couldn't ban, they had to figure out other things to do. They had failed in 2014 to get a statewide ban on the ballot, thanks to our governor cutting a deal with a congressman in Colorado to create a task force to address the issues. But they came back in 2016 with quite a few issues. And so we had to figure out what is the most likely to pass, how are we going to help defeat that, and I think we'll talk about that in the strategic offensive. But the most detrimental one that they came up with was a 2,500-foot setback from not only schools, homes, occupied buildings, but anything like intermittent waterways, so a stream, if you spilled water, you couldn't be within 2,500 feet of that. And it essentially banned 90% of the state from oil and gas development. So that's huge. So we were able to message it as a ban and not just oil and gas development is farther from things. So that was another win. They did not get enough signatures to make the ballot. So that was a great win for us. I show you these because there's a difference between, probably as here, oil and gas development and fracking in Coloradans' eyes. So here you'll see between 2013 and 2016, support of oil and gas development hovered in the 70s, and that's great. But when you bring it to fracking and actually use the word fracking, you only range in the high 50s, low 60s for support of fracking. You can also see the highest that we got was in October of 2014. That's when almost a year-long initiative by a big PR initiative called Coloradans for Responsible Energy Development really went on the offensive to defeat a ballot initiative. But as you can see, they dropped off a little bit, and the efforts didn't stay quite as good, and our support dropped. So shows you how much we need to stay engaged. And lastly, just to echo what Jackie said, in Colorado, we see it no longer a debate to frack or not. We've sort of won that. What we're seeing is now this more global, national, how do we stop anyone from actually needing oil and gas development? How do we stop that end use so that we don't have to debate over it? And it's also made our local people that are opposed to oil and gas development feel sort of abandoned by the national effort, and things have gotten a lot more localized, which I think we'll talk about too. So we have divestment, keep it in the ground, a lot of the things that are targeting Ohio as well. That's all I have.
All right. All right, thank you, Ann. Thank you, Jackie. So yoga and camping is against oil and gas.
Of course they are.
So when rolling papers take over and they come out against oil and gas, you're the perfect trifecta to represent Colorado. I got that. And you guys both hit on this. Could you give us an example of what a strategic offense looks like?
Sure. Well, I think a great example is the report that Energy and Depth put out in addition with you guys, with the Ohio Gas Association, talking about the ad valorem taxes that the oil and natural gas industry has paid on production. We found that through Freedom of Information Act requests that this industry has brought $43.7 million directly to local communities in only 6 counties in Ohio. But you can't just send out a report, You can't do that. That's not effective. And one of the things we did in this report was we broke down what that means to every single county in the report, and we're actually going to these counties now and talking to them and saying, hey, did you know about this? Here's how this tax works. Here's how it goes to townships and municipalities and schools. And what do you need from us? Let's have a dialogue. We live here. We work here. If you do have questions about anything that's going on with this industry while we're at it. So really engaging and just continuing to tell our story and setting the record straight. But it does, in Ohio anyway, we really have to be physically there. You can't just put out a press release and hope that the media picks it up. No. We have to be physically present in these communities and ambassadors, quite frankly, of the great work that this industry is doing to support these local communities. So that, to me, I think grassroots is the absolutely most important thing that we need to do. So.
And I think it's been similar in Colorado. OOGA itself has 2 community outreach coordinators that span the state. I'm one of them. And we split the state in 2, and we're responsible for if there's any questions, any need for education, any regulatory updates, questions, any need that we need operators and local governments to be talking, we are there. We're in person. But I think a great strategic offensive, like Jackie said, was the ballot initiatives. What we had to do first was find the funding to fight it. So we had to do a huge fundraising drive just to start the polling about what was going to be effective in fighting it. What messaging is going to work for Coloradans? Which one is the most easy to defeat? What are the ads going to look like? How can we work with the other trade associations, the PR initiatives, the different ag and business groups to create a unified message to Coloradans? And then it was a lot of vendor engagement. Often at these, within our trade association, our biggest audience is often operators, but how do we get the guys with the boots on the ground in Weld County to talk about this to their family and neighbors? So it was taking our own connections and networks and really leveraging those on a grassroots level. And that all kind of leaked to the media, both planned and unplanned, which was really helpful to not get enough signatures, even with signature fraud, not enough signatures to get on the ballot. So
We need to do a better job of that in Ohio, I think. Just frankly, we do. We really do. I mean, we coordinate. There's coordinated efforts among people that get paid, quite frankly, to do this. But we
Signatures,
need,
you mean?
Huh?
Gathering the signatures?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But but to your point, I mean, people that are working in the industry, we need your help. Simply put, because it is all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think you both touched on something very interesting there, and Ann, you mentioned it in your presentation, was you saw that little spike of support during the ballot initiative. That was, 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Is that when it was?
Yep.
So, again, after seeing that, the industry seems to disengage after we have the big wins. If we're seeing any success with the public, are there any lessons learned from this?
Well, I can say in Colorado, we had our ballot initiative in 2014. Everyone was gung-ho on fighting them. We chilled out for, a year, and they came back in 2016. I mean, lesson learned, don't disengage. We had to start all over and start educating people again. And that'll often happen, too, in local governments. If I stop coming around and stop paying attention to them, frankly, they start getting in their own heads about what their citizens are saying. So we've learned that you truly can't stop engaging. And fortunately for us at OOGA, our board members have made it a priority now to fund engagement and fund grassroots initiatives and PR campaigns. So we're very lucky, and I would encourage you to do the same. But they've put the money where they know it matters, and that's stopping things at the local level.
Yeah, it's just we really can't reiterate this enough. The fight is true is not, especially I think now. I hope we'll see, but because we hopefully are going to be getting some help in DC, right? We've had a great, I think same in Columbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do they have to go? Right? They go to a city council member who may be like-minded, and they try to poison the well with other folks too, with misinformation campaigns, which is difficult because you have to constantly be monitoring these pockets and where they kind of pop up and they go away. But if we're reaching out and telling our story consistently through the right messengers and through a strategic offense all the time, we have a much better grasp on what's going on at all times. And if somebody has questions about the industry, they know exactly who to call. It's not like, I only see you when you need me, or it's kind of like a friend that only calls you when you need something. How long until you're like, I don't want to talk to you, right? Or what do they care about? Well, I don't really care about me. That's exactly what happens with the communities, I think. Do you feel
Yeah,
the same way?
totally. And I don't want to scare you, but so what we're seeing in Colorado right now is as things are getting more localized, we're seeing this increased pressure on county commissioners, city council members. We're seeing a huge uptick in threats to them and their families, recalls to people that are term limited within months, really wasteful and irrational tactics, but they're kind of effective right now, which is unfortunate. It's forcing city council members and county commissioners to bring permits that would normally be fine through their land use process and bringing them to public hearing and creating this whirlwind for residents and oil and gas industry employees and the companies. And what we're also seeing is more organized efforts in national activist groups targeting local grassroots groups so that they organize, they're funded, and they will often organize so much that they will participate in local and state rulemakings. Even towns and counties themselves have been participating in state rulemakings and sort of elevating them to where the media is catching attention of it, and definitely swaying things. So the local level is not to be underestimated, and I would really emphasize that the hard work starts there.
Now, and we had our Shale Insight Conference in Pittsburgh here last year, and during that time, I guess it would be now President Trump, but now then candidate Trump, spoke, and of course he said, guys, if I become president, your industry is going to be huge, and I believe that to be true. So now that Trump is at the helm, what do you expect as far as activism goes? Have we seen in other industries or other issues? How do we see that, kind of curtailing to the oil and gas industry?
Sure. So in Colorado, and our CEO has been in the media talking about this quite a bit, is that we don't expect a lot to change for us in the regulatory world. As I told you, Colorado has really stringent regulations that we think are stronger than the federal government, so we don't see a lot moving that way. However, we do think, and we've already seen it, that a lot of these local activists and just residents on the other side of the aisle feel very emboldened right now, and they feel that they really have to put it all on the line right now. They're scared that they're out of options, and they're truly looking at tactics that we haven't seen before. A lot of civil disobedience. A city in Colorado just this week tried to pass a climate bill of rights and protections that essentially gave them the right to enforce laws that protect them from corporations that could cause climate change through direct action without the intervention of police. Luckily, at the last hour, the without police intervention was taken out when it was passed on first reading, but we're still seeing people thinking that the federal government's not protecting them, the state government isn't, the local government is, so it's me as the individual that has to do anything I can, whether it's legal or not, to protect me from oil and gas. So we think it's just making people more radical, in Colorado at least. Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks, and particularly bad ideas come from Colorado when it comes to activists, so you now just scared me, so thank you.
Well, I'm here to scare you.
Thank
so,
you.
Yeah.
Jackie?
I think right now the environmental extremists, fringe environmental activists, I think they're trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up, right? So they're kind of like not sure what to do with themselves, I think, right now. They've got a lot of fires put out in Ohio. But it's coming, It is. I mean, it's coming. I think they're going to use the Wayne National Forest to the best that they can to try some things. They've used horse manure and a bunch of other disgusting tactics. I think there'll be threats as well from Appalachia Resist. And the Ohio Environmental Council, I got to tell you, I love when the Ohio Environmental Council comes from Columbus to local communities in southeastern Ohio, because people in southeastern Ohio do not like people from Columbus coming in their communities and telling them what to do and how to think. So a big part of our job is just to point out what's going on and kind of connect the dots. And but because again, I don't know that we know yet. We're still kind of watching and see what they do, but they're going to grow up, right? And the question is, are they going to get the dollars that they have in Colorado that's become a serious problem? So we'll see.
All right, yes, and as a child of southeastern Ohio, yes, your synopsis is correct. that is true. Now, we both had some wins in both states over the past couple of years, and we need to capitalize on that. However, as you just kind of mentioned, the activists are regrouping. They're kind of changing their ways. What do you expect from them over the next year? What kind of tactics, what kind of issues do you think is going to be, what will motivate them over the next year's time frame?
Well, we've got rulemaking coming up, right? So that's going to be a big one. They're going to do, I think they may do some of the things that you mentioned in Colorado, and we haven't really seen that, right? So we might have a lot of national groups paying attention to the rulemaking process that perhaps hasn't happened in the past. So that'll be interesting to see. So I think that's going to be the one. Every time we have a lease sale with the Wayne National Forest, I think there are going to be some issues popping up with that. Again, pipelines are going to be the thing this year, right? Not in my backyard stuff. So it's going to be the year of pipelines. Oh, and by the way, these natural gas-fired power plants, which by the way, how awesome is that, right?
Yeah.
So Sierra Club has put out a hit list on 2 of the natural gas-fired power plants that are slated, going through the process right now in Ohio. So about a month ago, they announced that they're going after the end users again. So they want to know who is consuming natural gas, and they want to shut them down. So that we'll be watching that as well. So I would say that's in Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in Colorado, what we've seen, like I said, is it's not whether or not it's not ban fracking anymore. It's how do we manage it at the local level? So what we're seeing is a lot of pushback on the impacts with noise, traffic, pipelines. They're sort of utilizing the local land use processes in counties and cities to try to delay development as much as they can, or bring it to public hearing where the public can come out, get the media involved. And then at the university level, we're seeing quite a bit of divestment efforts. So we've seen them at, I believe, CU and DU and Western State. And luckily, Energy in Depth has been extremely helpful in bringing to light what that actually means for the university as far as funding. We even saw recently at the community level, an oil and gas company being a good neighbor, it's part that you invest in the community, invest in nonprofits. They gave money to fund something for a local private school, and the activists pressured them so much that the school board voted to give the money back away from the kids. So things like that are happening, just creative ways, because they can't ban fracking or put a moratorium, to delay it, to make it harder, anything they can think of.
Huh. I thought this was going to be such a happier conversation.
At COGA, they call me the Bad News Bears. I'm not kidding, so, yeah.
And what do you see? I love that. I love that name. So what do you see from a woman's perspective, about doing this type of engagement out there in the communities?
Well, last year at this conference, I was very pregnant. And shortly after the conference, I had the most challenging episode that's happened since I took this job. I'm a pretty strong woman. I can kind of, handle it when people yell at me and throw stuff in my car that they've done. This one took me to my knees. I was 9.5 months pregnant, and I was at an event. I walked outside, and there were a bunch of frack-free activists that obviously know who I am and what I do for a living. And the woman was using tactics, unfortunately, that we see a lot, which is these scare tactics that our industry will cause premature deaths in children. And, she basically told me that my unborn child was going to have birth defects. For anyone that's been pregnant at 9.5 months, you just can't imagine. I mean, it's just horrific. And what was the worst part was, as she walked away, she said to the protesters, "That's what she gets for what we do." I can't tell you enough. It is, and these people are truly irrational, and they will stoop to any level to advance their cause. By the way, I have a very healthy 8-month-old daughter. Thank you. Which someday I might even, introduce her to the activism. No, please don't.
No, but bring her to the winter meeting. We encourage that.
Yeah. And then what's also interesting, just real quickly too, is most of the spokespeople on the other side in Ohio are also women. So apparently, because we support fracking, somehow we don't care about the environment, right? And we don't care about children, and we don't care about any of these issues, especially as women. They have a really tough time, I think, dealing with a woman that has 2 little kids like me. And also my dad's a water well driller, so I love talking to them about groundwater contamination. But it is really, really hard. It is, and it's very real. But we need more female voices, I think, on our side, because they do. They pull the heartstring kind of scare tactics. And if you go on our website, we talk about that and get in detail and show pictures and things like that. It is not something you'd want to show your children. This is tough stuff to kind of see. The example that I just shared about my personal experience last year, I actually filmed it because it was I filmed it, and then I walked away and I just lost it. You know, it was like I was strong for a minute and then I lost it. But one last thing with that story, and this was really unbelievable. So after this all happened, I actually, this reporter, television reporter, took these like 8 protesters, and she told them to stand together in a group so that they looked like there were more people there than there even were. I mean, and yet the reporter would not interview me on the other side. So since that happened, I have met with the general manager of that television station and was assured that we're not going to have that happen again, so that's good. At least something positive came out of that nightmare. But anyway, that's what we deal with. What about you?
Yeah, it's similar. I think when I was working in Ohio for Sean and Mike, they just thought that I was naive and young. And now that I'm so old and wise in Colorado, they take me more seriously. It's interesting. The women are just very disappointed in me. But the men, it's funny. They will yell in my face and they will make threats. They put my personal information on the internet, those kinds of things. And I think they do it because it's a lot easier to yell at me, being much smaller than them and younger, and a woman, than it is to yell at my 6-foot attorney that's next to me. So, we deal with this a lot, but it's also a lot of digging into the principle of why you're doing it. I really believe in what we do, and that makes it a bit easier, and I try to get that across to the people that are yelling at me by not backing down, as Jackie says. So, yeah.
See, I have Jackie go with Mike for protection for Mike. No, thank you both for this. I think it was very helpful, and it's something that people need to hear. So please give them both a round of applause, Jackie, Stewart, and Ann Carter.
Thank you.